Hey everyone, it's Cire here, and today I'm going to teach you how I go about painting black for my Slaves to Darkness. This scheme could also work with Chaos Space Marines, Black Legion, or your preferred black armored faction. So we start off with a black primer, and then we go right into Vallejo Black Gray, which is a pretty subtle change. It's it's pretty dark. There's not a huge tonal shift. You're going to want to focus this on the top areas, and then after that you're going to go in with Vallejo Dark Gray, focusing on smaller areas than the previous layer. Just make sure you don't overdo it. You want to make sure you're still leaving a fair amount of that black primer showing through, otherwise you'll just end up with a gray looking armor as opposed to a black looking armor. Once you're done with those, you're going to move in with your Vallejo Dark Gray again, and just do some scratchy highlights around the edges of the armor. This is not a straight edge highlighting. You want to make sure that you break up the lines a little bit. You want it to look a little bit weathered. After that, you're going to move in with Vallejo French Mirage Blue, which is a fairly lighter gray with a blue tint, obviously, as the name suggests. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to do some stipply, scratchy highlights on the edges of things. You can also freehand a little bit of micro scratches, as you see here. Just basically drawing a line up from where, maybe some rocks or something, or someone tried to shoot an arrow at them and it maybe skipped off the plate there. This is a better look at what it looks like when it's done, or at least on that front plate when it's done. Then we're going to move on to the bone here. Start off with Vallejo English Uniform. Just make sure you put in a couple coats. This is, just make sure you're getting a good base coat. From there, we're going to do a little bit of stippling. Now, you can do this with a brush, or as you'll see in a moment, I'll switch over to a sponge. This is Vallejo Green Brown. It's not a huge difference between this and the English uniform. But then after that, you're going to want to mix that green brown with Iraqi sand, which is kind of a tan color, and just stipple it on again, focusing on the higher edges, higher points of the skull here. And finally, you're going to go in with a straight Iraqi sand, continuing in the same manner that you were before. The reason we're stippling like this is to give it some texture for this bone here. And then you're going to use a Seraphim Sepia or your preferred yellowy sepia wash. And this is just going to kind of blend everything, all those previous stippled layers together. And then on the tips, you don't have to do this. This is something I like to do on my horns, is add some dark brown, in this case Vallejo Dark Rust, to the tips, just moving your brush towards the tip there, and it gives the horn a little bit of visual interest at the tips there. For the highlighting, now I paint my horses black for this army. So what you want to do is you want to mix some German chocolate brown and black. This is going to be very subtle, almost not noticeable. And the way I determine my highlights is I just put the model directly under a lamp, and I basically follow the highlights that naturally flow from the lamp above. Once you're done with that, you're going to go in with a pure Vallejo German chocolate brown, and in those smaller areas of those broad highlights you went before, that you painted before, do the next layer of highlighting. And if you don't want to do, if you don't really want to bother with what I previously said with the lamp, you can just dry brush. This is not a guide for super high level painting. This is to be able to knock out some army units. This is more of an army painting tutorial here, so dry brushing is, completely viable. For the cloak, we're going to do a leather cloak for him, so we're going to stipple on with Vallejo Dark Rust, trying to keep the colors in a similar range here. Now this is heavily thinned down, probably 5 parts water to 1 part paint, and you're just going to stipple it on, stabbing motion, not a dry brushing motion. And while you're at it, go ahead and paint in all those other leather straps, belts, etc. As you can see, I already I had to go back and do these. The leather cloak has the next layer on, which I'll show you in a moment. That is Vallejo Beastie Brown. This is more of an orangey brown. Again, you're going to stipple on stabbing motion, not a dry brushing motion. Focus this on the higher folds of the cloak, ignoring the recesses, and it'll give you a nice, textured highlight. Still thin down though. You don't want to build actual physical texture. You just want the appearance of texture. There you go. You can kind of see what you're aiming for there. Now you can move up to medium flesh tone. You don't have to do this step. I just prefer to do this to give it a little bit more texture. You can see I'm using tweezers here if you don't have the appropriate sized brush for stippling. You can also just stipple or emulate stippling with brush strokes, but this is a little bit faster, a little bit easier. And it's going to look a little stark, but don't worry, we're going to kind of unify all those colors again with Citadel Snakebite Leather. What you're going to do is you're going to apply this over the entire cloak, and do not let it dry. You want to apply this quickly, and then before it dries, you're going to get a brush full of Citadel Contrast Medium, and you're going to wipe away that snakebite leather. And if you've seen me use this technique before, I want to make sure I'm giving credit where credit is due. I picked up this technique from Richard Gray, who has an amazing channel. You should really check it out. But yeah, just want to make sure we're giving credit where credit is due. And you're also going to apply the snakebite leather to this cloth he has under his saddle here. Do not apply it to the boots. We're going to do the boots a little bit differently, using a different color just to break up the shapes and the materials here. We don't want it to all look exactly the same. But before we do that, I'm actually going to show you how I do the straps here. So grab your Vallejo English uniform as before and do some scratchy highlights in the same manner you did the armor. And then you're going to grab your Iraqi sand and focus this on the higher stress points. So right here he actually has a little tear in his belt, so I figured that's a good area to put a little extra wear and tear with Iraqi sand. So so for the boots here, we're going to do a mix of Gore Grunt Fur and Contrast Medium. We're not going to wipe it away this time. We're just going to apply it straight to the boot over the area we previously stippled in the same manner as the cloak. And you'll see here, I'll show you once it's dry, how much of a difference it makes and why we chose these different contrast colors to put over it. And while you're at it, actually go ahead and put this over the belts and straps and all those areas. And and his saddle, apparently. And there you go. So if you look at the cloth under his saddle and then the boot, you can see the difference there. You know, they were using the same paints, but putting that contrast kind of stains it a different color and breaks up the two parts of the model there. Now, very out of focus, you're gonna grab your Vallejo Bloody Red and apply it to the eyes. I like, this is an evil horse, it's a chaos horse, so it's gotta have evil red eyes. What else would you do? I also applied that Bloody Red to this piece of armor here. We're gonna give it some living eyes because that's very chaos. And the eyes in the helmet, of course. Now, within that previous red, you're going to get your AK Interactive Deep Orange. Any bright orange will do. And you're going to make a little circle within that previous red. Do this for all of the eyes you painted already. And then within that orange, you're going to grab a yellow, same idea, smaller area within that previous layer of orange for all the eyes. And then you're going to grab some black paint, your preferred black paint. I like Vallejo Model Color Black, and just put a little dot right in the center, if you can. Aim as best you can. The results may vary, but there we go. That's what it should look like when you're done. Creepy, scary eyes. Now we're going to move on to some oils. If you haven't used oils before, don't be afraid. We're going to have a 2-to-1 mix of Abtlung 502, Smoke, and Dark Brick Red. And okay, this is going to look kind of wacky. It's very red, but don't worry, we're going to end up wiping some of this away, and when it dries, it's not nearly as saturated as it looks as right now when it's wet. This is a modified version of what I've seen from another. To make sure I wanted to give credit where credit's due. Cult of Paint did something similar with their black armor, different recipes, but they did this red, dark brick red. I like mine a little bit darker, but, you know, again, credit where credit's due. I picked up the red idea from them, so I want to make sure I, you know, shouting them out. And what we're doing here is we're grabbing a clean brush with some mineral spirits, and we're just wiping away that dark brick red from areas where maybe it built up too heavily, making sure that red stays in the shadows. And there you go. So you can see it's not nearly as crazy red as it looked before. And so I'd actually forgotten to paint these hands. I didn't notice them until after. Go ahead and put a couple layers of dark rust. Then we're going to mix in some medium flesh tone with that dark rust, and we're just going to focus on like the knuckles and the higher areas of the hand. Just pick them out. If it looks too stark, don't worry. We're gonna do something to unify all these stark colors. A little out of focus here, but you get the idea. Pick out the fingers, knuckles, etc. And then with pure medium flesh tone, just the knuckles, just the higher like nubs you can see poking out there. And yeah, if you haven't, if you liked this kind of video, you like these tutorials, we'd appreciate it if you give it a like and, you know, subscribe, all that stuff. Yeah, once you're done with those, once those are dry, grab some Gilliman Flesh Contrast and put it over the entire thing. And it'll kind of unify all of that, those previous layers. And it wouldn't be one of my videos if we didn't put an ultra matte varnish over the whole thing. And the reason we're putting on this matte varnish is so that the next step, which is going to be metallics, you know, we're going to have this higher contrast between the two materials. This is Vallejo Metal Color Air Black, which is a very dark, silvery metal color. And you're going to apply this on the chainmail. I'm also going to apply this to the spear tip. And this is really up to you what you apply it on. Now, I will be using several metallics. Silvery metallic, so, you know, this is really up to taste. Next is going to be Vallejo Metal Color Exhaust Manifold, which is a brown-ish silver, and we're applying this to these like links and I don't know what you call these, like keychains? I don't really know what they are. You're going to apply that to these just so we can get, again, that difference in material. It's kind of similar to the boots and the cloth under the saddle. They're similar materials, but we want to make sure we're picking them out and making sure they don't look exactly the same. Then I grab Vallejo Model Color Black that I've been using before, and I thin it down with water. And the reason I do this instead of using a Nuln oil wash or something like that is Vallejo Model Color Black has a very matte finish, so when you thin it down and you apply it to this chainmail, it's going to dull the shine a little bit. I know I just talked about, you know, using matte varnish to, you know, increase the contrast between these two, but we don't really want to focus on the chainmail too much. We don't want too much attention drawn there. What we do want attention drawn is on this trim, and we're going to use Scale 75 Necro Gold, kind of a green, old gold to it. You know, you can use something brighter, but I feel like this Necro Gold, especially after we apply a wash to it, is kind of the appropriate old gold. Now right here, it's a little too bright for my liking, so what I take is that same wash I used before and apply it to all the gold trim. And then once that's dry, you come back in with your Scale 75 Necro Gold and just pick out some areas where you want to increase the shine a bit. I used my lamp as a guide, and then just do a quick layer over those areas. You can also cover up any areas where maybe you've applied too much wash. You can reapply your Necro Gold. Then once you're done with that, you're going to grab your next higher gold, which in my case was Scale 75 Elven Gold, and just do some, I'm not going to say you need to do edge highlights. In this case, I am doing an edge highlight, but pick out a couple focal points where you really want that gold to shine. So I'm thinking the tops of those spikes, the higher edges of this part of his armor here. Really up to you, but the safe bet is to pick the sharpest edges. It's kind of a safe bet. Yeah, don't forget his little skull on his head here. And his horns. And that's actually going to be it. It's a pretty quick tutorial, and once you're done, that should leave you with this. And there we have our black tutorial finished. I'm very happy with how this came out. You know, it's kind of an interesting black. It's not just super flat. I'm actually very happy with how the other elements turned out as well, the bone and the leather. I know this was a tutorial for black armor, but you know, I hope you learned something interesting from this tutorial. And if you did enjoy this tutorial, we'd appreciate the usual stuff like subscribe, share, all that. And we also have live streams, and if you want to check those out, you know, go check out the channel. All right, y'all. Bye.